Suffice it to say, some of my projects have been a little intense lately. So, to unwind, or should I say unravel, I revisited a regular player on the childhood TV roster, Totally Spies. And boy oh boy, what a mistake that was. After the mandatory decade or more spent cringing at this very era of fashion, it all of a sudden just hit different. And with all these now cute again outfits, how could I not be inspired? But where to even begin? Then I watched Season 2's episode, Alex Quits. Two items that called out to me were Alex's black tank top with pink hearts and Britney's strappy flower vest top. That kind of reminds me of Homer Simpson's Moo Moo. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's go through a quick breakdown. I preferred Britney's magenta and blue colorway as a base, and I'll be really honest here, I already had the yarn left over from my previous knit project, so it worked out. I chose to go with Alex's heart detailing instead of Britney's flowers because it's just too cute, and since I thought the pink parts would work better on the blue, I switched the color proportions. Both tops were roughly the same length, so the real question was which neckline to go with. Personally, I liked the square cut of Alex's top and the contrast binding detail of Britney's, so it just made sense to combine the two. How would you do it? To begin, I wanted a cast-on that looked nice enough on its own, so no folded hem this time round. After some experimentation, I eventually came to something that was somewhere in between a knitted cast-on and the alternating cast-on. Basically, instead of knitting into each stitch, you just knit in between stitches instead. This cast-on wasn't particularly stretchy, but it still had some give. So although it was just about fine for this project, I wouldn't recommend using it for anything where you'll need elasticity. That being said, I actually loved the way it turned out. The number of stitches was calculated by measuring the desired circumference and converting it into stitches using the tension of 24 stitches per 10 centimeters, or 4 inches if you will. After knitting a few rounds, I made sure to check that they were large enough for me to put on, and once that was golden, I then proceeded with a totally tubular knit. Dude. To contour the waist, I started with decreases followed by increases on both sides. There are other ways to do this of course, but as evidenced in previous videos, I spend as much time on this method as the average 16-year-old does on TikTok. I use knit 2 together for right leaning and SSK for left leaning decreases, followed by right and left leaning make 1 increases to build the round back up again. I don't know about you, but I find that knitting can be an effective form of meditation, at least when you're knitting stockinette in the round. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but I know what happened.
If you know what I mean.
I carried on with the increases until I reached a comfortable height because, if you couldn't tell already, I'm totally winging it. Let's be honest, that one barely qualified. Naturally, one could reasonably assume that the smallest part of the project would be the easiest to complete. If only we lived in a world where everything made sense and chaos was merely a figment of one's imagination. But of course, this is not and never was the case. The process made 0 sense, and all I had to say the entire time was help. Now, I don't know if it was because I was kind of tired when I started on the contrast detailing, aka the straps, or if it was just the yarn having absolutely no give and the stitches being difficult to distinguish from each other. Perhaps I just couldn't foresee the sheer depth of violence this project had clearly chosen.
What in the fresh hell is this?
But one shoulder strap literally took me not a few, but several hours to complete. Honestly, it was a blurry ordeal caked in delirium. And the next thing I knew, it was already time for bed. Following the laziest blocking you could ever imagine, I could finally see the real fit of the top, and I have to say,
I was into it.
It was finally time for the hearts, and it swiftly dawned on me that they would either make or break this garment. Of course, you could use intarsia to incorporate the hearts into the knit, but I really preferred the embroidered effect of the duplicate stitching method. Fortunately, to ease the potential blow, I was already a veteran when it came to duplicate stitching hearts, and well, I wear the badge proudly. Again, with the stitches being as small as they were, this took some time, but the first draft of the heart came out better than expected, so there was minimal dilly-dallying. I can now say with confidence that my Jennifer's Body Sweater project was 100% worth it, because if this skill doesn't aid my survival in the upcoming apocalypse, then I don't know what will. Despite a few minor adjustments I would probably make for future projects, I was really happy with how this all turned out. Did it serve episode opening scenes energy? I'd say totally.